And I'm gonna be high.
Good on you, Donald. I'm the Rocket Man, yeah.
I'm a rocket man. And I'm gonna be
Rocket Man. I'm a rocket man. I wanna go to the moon.
We've got Garrett Allen, the founder of LoadPartner TMS and SearchCarriers.com. He has a long history, although he doesn't look old enough to have a long history. He's got a decade history building TMSs for large freight brokerages, and we're going to get into that. But Garrett, where are you calling in from today?
Yeah, I'm calling in from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm excited to chat today.
All right, just to give the audience a little perspective here, I've seen you with that mic set up with the headphones many, many times because you're live streaming all the time. I said you're the founder of LoadPartner TMS. I'm going to start with that. It is the first, I believe the first, open sourced TMS. And for those of you listening, if you don't understand open source, you will after this episode. And if that's all you get out of it, at least you know that now, because I think it's coming not just to freight, it's coming to every industry. But if you think of Open AI, and then you hear about this Chinese AI company called DeepSeek. That's the comp for non-freight folks. It is an open sourced version of Open AI, and they said, hey, we can steal enterprise value by building a very similar product, one version behind. I think the Chinese probably did it underhandedly, but what you are doing at LoadPartner is building what freight brokerages, small, medium size, maybe mid-market, maybe enterprise, I'm not sure exactly, I'll let you explain, but you're building what they need, and you're open sourcing it. And so we'll get into why you're doing that. But can you explain what your mantra or your North Star of why you're open sourcing a TMS right now?
Yeah. I mean, people for a long time have been asking for, an open source TMS, and I think they kind of miss the point a little bit a lot of times on like why they want that. But really, like our North Star is, all these TMS providers that are out there today. There's a lot of gatekeeping around, like, say you're a small brokerage, you want to work, you use a certain vendor, have a certain integration done. You're kind of at the mercy of, does your TMS provider play ball? Will they make that integration? How long till they get it on the roadmap? Things like that. And TMSs are so critical to your business, right? Like your business workflows are built through it. People their day jobs are literally based on how your TMS works in a lot of times. And so building this open source TMS kind of gives control back to you as a broker of, you can go in and see the code. You can go make a copy of it if you want, change what you want. If we aren't building something in the way that you want or not fast enough and there's a vendor you want to use, it's like really specific to your business, you have the ability to go do that integration. That we don't have to be a gatekeeper for you. You don't have to wait for us. It's all within your control. And so, building this TMS out is really focusing on that next generation of the TMS being really built for the brokerage so they can own it, and less of like these giant enterprise companies that you kind of have to wait and see what they'll do for you.
Yeah, I think that I own a freight brokerage and I feel that pain, and I have for many years. And I used to run a truckload brokerage, and I used several of the leading TMS providers, some of the legacy and some of the new ones. And I wanted to integrate with my freight factoring company, and it just wasn't possible. So instead of having a nice, factor load, if I wasn't using Triumph, then I couldn't just integrate my factoring. And those things, people don't realize how impactful that is to a business to have to manually invoice, and then you miss things and a carrier doesn't get paid, and then it dings your surety bond. And it's just so many different problems. That's just one small example. I also think, from my perspective of open source, one of the pieces of value is that if you did this 5 years ago, I don't think it would have been that impactful, because sure, you could have built it and then every brokerage that wanted to use it and then make any changes would have had to be extremely technical. They would have really had to have had the ability to do what you do. And there maybe are some of those out there, but it wouldn't have gone at scale. Now with AI and, not just vibe coding, but actually just AI and agents and the GitHub repositories and all the things that you can do, not just LoadPartner, but somebody could plug into it and build their own suite of tools that you're not building. And they don't have to beg you to put it on your roadmap. They can just build it, and they don't have to be as good as you at coding.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's a really interesting concept right now in freight brokerage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think AI is definitely a huge piece of this. Of we were talking earlier before the show about like just like the power of AI and like how anybody like I'm an engineer by trade, but these there's brokers now that on the weekends they can build an app with Grok and say like, look at this cool thing I built. But then they go in Monday and it's like, I wish my TMS could integrate, but we're on XYZ, they don't do it. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, if you're on LoadPartner TMS, like you can prompt your AI to like do that integration. Like all the code's right there. You can like literally build something over the weekend that you think's cool, come in Monday, plug it into your TMS and have a new feature. And that level of like being able to solve a problem at like that speed is going to just unlock so many possibilities. And even outside of just brokers using AI to build their own tools, also think about startups. And like in 2024, a lot of the time we spent with some of the projects we were building back then, we were knocking on the doors of all these TMSs of, hey, we want to add these different features. We have customers ready to go. And the TMS providers were like, oh, we might build it ourselves, or our roadmap is really backed up, yada, yada. And as a startup, that's tough because it's like you have customers there. They're like, we want to use this tool. It solves a problem. And the TMS providers don't have the time. With LoadPartner TMS, that startup in that world can then go and just directly integrate with your TMS. They don't have to go talk to us at LoadPartner TMS. They can just go do it themselves. They don't have to wait for us. And so it's like both sides here really benefit a lot.
Well, also, I wanted to ask a question on that. So let's say a broker, SMB broker, maybe even a startup, has a client that uses, well, I won't use E2 Open as an example, but that is interesting. We're talking today. It's the 28th, I think, of May, and WiseTech just bought E2 Open, which is just jumbled spaghetti code of 15 companies all together. But they bought them for like billions of dollars. I don't know the amount, but it's huge. They have a customer who says, well, you can work with us if you integrate into, let's maybe say NetSuite, and you don't have an off-the-shelf NetSuite integration. They could then, how could that work for them? Like, what's that scenario look like?
Yeah, so like if you use NetSuite and you wanted to integrate with it and do your accounting, whatever through it, like you would literally the code is all out there. You can open up the repository. You can set up the TMS yourself. Assuming you've got a dev team, you've got IT, you're a larger brokerage. I mean, it's just an application. So you go set it all up on your system. You could have your dev team literally go build an integration out to NetSuite, to your sandbox, like drop it into the code base on that server you just set up, and now you've got a NetSuite integration, and like you never even have to call us. It's completely, you would never have to contact us. You wouldn't have to pay us any money. You could just go do that.
And would they own that code if they built it?
Yeah, the NetSuite code and everything. Yeah, absolutely. So the license.
So that's what's interesting is because I think that brokers, they're so competitive, right? And they don't want to build a feature for everyone else while they're building it. Although I think that part of the thesis of LoadPartner is that when you build a tool, everybody gets access to it, the open source community. But they can still have that flexibility to be like, no, we took the GitHub and we put it on our own device, and now we're putting in the NetSuite code on our version of the code.
Yeah. And so
interesting. Ownership of code, it just doesn't exist right now.
There's kind of two pieces. So like the license on LoadPartner TMS is designed that essentially you can go fork the project, you can go add your own code to it, you can use it internally. The main limitations there are that you can't then go sell your version of LoadPartner TMS to other people. Like you're right. We don't want to compete with you using our own code. That doesn't make sense. That's really like the main stipulation. But one of the things you kind of touched on of like if you build these plugins and you're like, I don't want to just give that away for free. One of the things we want to do in the future, this isn't there yet, but one of the things we want to do is have this really robust plugin system. So it's almost like, I hesitate to use like App Store because it's so like cliche, but kind of like an App Store of where you can build a NetSuite plugin, put it up on the LoadPartner plugin store, charge $20, and make money off of that plugin that you built. And like anybody needs a NetSuite plugin can go use Brokerage 123's NetSuite plugin. It's available. It's $20 a month.
Okay, so I like the idea of it. I haven't even thought of that, but my brain immediately was like, well, why can't the open source community build a freight bill audit tool? And then be like, yeah, if you want to audit your freight bills, it'll scan, it has a document parser, and it'll do this, and then it'll validate against the quote in the TMS. And they build it for themselves because that's a huge thing for all truckload and a lot of LTL brokerages. They validate bills, and then they say, we built something pretty cool. Let's monetize this on a rev share or whatever it is, and we put it in the marketplace. They can get, I mean, if you're struggling internally with your team and you're saying, hey, what's the priority? What's the most important thing to build next? It's like if you're going to the C-suite, hey, this will help us and we can make money on it. and they just rubber stamp it every time.
Yeah. And that happens
That's
a
an
lot,
interesting
right?
thing.
Like, I mean, you look at like these again with AI. How many brokers do you know that like would have these like little features they wish their TMS had? They're like, hey, you could go build that with Grok over the weekend, drop it into your TMS, and then charge people $10 to use it. Like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, we want that world. That sounds great because then everybody can just constantly innovate. You can make money. Like, everybody wins.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of how the industry works today. Right now, if you want to get a new customer, and I think I'll use E2 Open as an example. It used to be Blue Jay, or maybe they're the same thing. I don't even know, but I know that they were called Blue Jay, and maybe it's got bought by E2 Open. But either way, it was like, hey, you want to get EDI tenders from this enterprise shipper because you won lanes on a contract award. Now you have to pay $3,500, and the integration is going to take 5 months.
Right.
You have to pay E2 Open just to get access to the shipper's freight. And in this world, it's like, oh, I want to build an integration with this shipper. They need to give me an EDI tender. And it's like, oh, well, there's EDI companies out there that could help me, or I could build it myself. And now we're receiving tenders. Like, I just feel like that's so disruptive. And instead of paying the company who's, the gatekeeper, I think you said gatekeeping earlier, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You're actually monetizing it because you've built it. And now it's like, oh, now this is a new way to get tenders from Scott's Miracle Grow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's totally changing the script. It's putting the power back into the hands of the people running the freight, really, like the brokerages, and kind of like cutting out that gatekeeper. Like, that's, like I said, it's kind of the start. That's sort of the North Star, is like really give the power back to the broker and like their tech stack.
How are you gonna? And you don't have to give all this away. I know you're launching this in a few weeks, but how does the pricing model differ to like a Thai TMS or a Rose Rocket or one of the like the newer? I'll call them legacy almost now, but they're like the newer established players.
Yeah, so our pricing is going to be there's a couple ways. So the basic pricing is going to be by seat. So you'll pay for users essentially. We're going to have our first version we're launching. We're looking at probably like a $50 per seat price. We're going to have a launch discount, which I'm not sure on the exact number on that, but we'll have like a launch discount for the first few months as we're getting like early users on, etc. But then we also offer, if you want us to like help you set up the TMS on your own infrastructure, we offer like different licensing and plans to like actually offer you like a managed service. So if you want us to come in, set up your server on a machine either in the cloud for you, or like you've got one in the office, we can do that and set it up and manage it and do all that for you as well. So we that's kind of, again, one of the benefits of like how we've built it and how we've structured it, is we can really make a little bit of anything work, and we're happy to work with everybody to kind of like figure out what a good price point would be based on that.
Yeah, and the reason I ask it, and I didn't, for the audience, I had no idea what the pricing model was. I have talked with Garrett about open source and on X, but I haven't asked him about how he's going to run his business that he's launching. And it's just, I'm glad that's the way you answered it, because I think the SaaS pricing model is so broken right now. Like, you go to a TMS provider, I won't always name names, but you know which ones I'm talking about. It's like, well, it's like $4 a transaction plus a monthly minimum commitment of $2,000 or $3,000, and then by user. And then if you go over, it's like you get a penalty because you ship too much. And now you got to tell us 2 months in advance how much you think you're going to ship that month. And then you can get a discounted rate on the per transaction. But if you don't ship that much, then the monthly minimum is actually $4,000 instead of, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm like, why isn't it just like tax brackets if you're going to do that? Like, hey, I think it'll be 500 shipments this month, and if I do 1,000, I should be paying the 1,000 shipment rate on anything between 500 and 1,000, just like taxes.
Yeah.
But that's a typical model out there, and I can speak from being a brokerage owner. That doesn't scale well, because I don't know how many. Like, am I supposed to go to Salesforce, the team, be like, hey, give me revenue projections, and if you're wrong, it comes out of your commission because we paid too much for our TMS now. Like, that's just not how you run a business.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always like, you see the scale whenever they do stuff like that too. You always see the scale of like, well, when you get over, 1,000 something loads, like, it's like, contact us and we'll work with it. And you're like, and some of these, they're like, oh, cool, we fall into like bucket one, but then like as they scale, they all of a sudden they're like, they're right up on that limit, and they're calling, and they're like, oh yeah, it's actually going to be like 4 times the price because now you're a huge customer and we're going to gouge you. And like, and
there's nothing you could do about it,
Yeah.
because now you're fully integrated. And it took a year, but you're fully integrated.
Yeah.
And once you're fully integrated in one of these, I mean, even McLeod or others, like, you just don't leave. And I do think there are really excellent TMSs out there that are worth what you pay for them if you have a large enough business. I do think that none of them are very agile because they don't have to be. So SMC3 and Mercury Gate, although they sold it to Corber, but Mercury Gate was like a staple for the LTL industry, and you pretty much just had to use Mercury Gate. And then everybody built these TMSs, is what they called them, but they were clouds connected to Mercury Gate. It was like, oh, look how cool the UI is, but the LTL carrier connections were still through Mercury Gate. And then that finally shifted. Truckload's been a bit of a wild west. There's a lot of TMSs. I could name, I mean, like Aljex, Turvo, Tie, Rose Rocket. They all exist out there, and they all have different features. But I think that's what's kind of interesting is that open sourcing, you beat them at the thing that they say they're the best at, which is like, we can customize, is what they all say.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do integrations. It's all API. It's going to be amazing. And we'll have off the shelf integrations with Denim and HallPay. And it's like, well, you didn't, and I thought you did.
Yeah.
And then in open source, it's like, well, you're actually moving much faster because it's not just Garrett building stuff.
Right.
It would be the community at scale building tools all the time and then shipping it into your guys' version once there's some kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe walk through that. How would you guys be like, hey, this can go in the code and this can't, and this developer built this cool thing, but we can't roll it out to all customers?
So we're going to build out, we've already architected it out. It's not built in there yet. I've talked about it on stream a few times. But we're going to have a plugin system. It's that whole app marketplace kind of a thing where basically there's going to be these sets of events and everything where you're going to be able to hook into like the core systems of the TMS without having to actually introduce code to the core system. It's going to be like a really tightly coupled integration path. And so the idea is a lot of these integrations, like, NetSuite or different load boards or tracking solutions, they'll be able to just be these plugins that can exist in their own code repositories that just get like added on top. And so basically the idea is really 90% are going to go in there. Now, if there's a very core functionality change that needs to happen, or this is something that everybody's going to want an obvious add, like that'll come into the core project, and it's all open source, so you can go in and like you're explaining, maybe somebody forks it, builds a version, they're like, hey, we want to commit this back to the main, we'll review it, talk to them, pull it in if it makes sense, etc. But generally we're going to push people towards like more of like a plugin system, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. No one's doing it, so it's like, oh, you're just kind of making up exactly the way it should be, and that makes sense to me. I think that there's a company, and I won't name their name because I don't think they're going to be around all that much longer, but that was doing something similar, but it was not open sourced. And they're like, we're going to be the marketplace for all activity, and we're going to have like an app marketplace. And they turned into a freight brokerage that didn't do as well. But that's not what they set out to build. I think that idea was great, but it wouldn't work unless it's open sourced, because you can't, like, their monetization schedule was probably like, hey, we'll integrate with ABC Freight Bill Audit Company or XYZ TMS. And then when they sign up, there's a rev share and a rebate, and it's like a sales agent thing, but it doesn't work unless it's open sourced.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And the other thing with that too is like timing, because with AI and everything, right? You think about like 5 years ago, even like the big brokerages that have dev teams that are going to be like building plugins, like you were saying, they're going to be like, I don't care about monetizing this. It's like a risk to legal probably, or, various reasons we're not going to deal with this. But now we have these like individual smaller brokers that are like, oh, I can make a few extra bucks this month by like prompting a thing and then like throwing it on the marketplace. Like, that's awesome. I'm going to do that. And like it's just like a total shift in like how approachable like writing code for a TMS really is. And I think that's like one of the big differences of like, now's the time where you really could expose like this marketplace plugin system and have a little bit of everybody contributing to it without it being such like a huge lift.
Yeah, and you don't need an entire engineering team anymore. You need some people that can code, some talent, right? Maybe somebody like a Garrett. We have a Troy. Like, you don't need 15 people from overseas to build out all the infrastructure. You need a couple of people who are technical and can have some vision, and then you need Grok, and you give it the GitHub and you say, learn this code base, and then say, I want to build this into it. Here's the API endpoints, and it can pretty much tell you how to build it, or I've seen Grok code it. And then there's, of course, like, you've got all these companies like Lovable and Replit that are like vibe coding, but they're being trained on Claude, and now it's Claude 4. And so like the models, the LLMs get better, and the wrappers just use the new model. It's like if we're a year away, I'd be surprised if we're a full year away from you being able to just like build an app through those marketplaces.
Yeah, we've even been exploring the possibility of building that into the TMS in some kind of a capacity where there's literally like probably the way I would see it starting out is more of like a report generation kind of a thing that would then maybe eventually become like a full page. But you think about going into a page and like needing a specific report and being able to kind of like those different projects you mentioned, the products, be able to prompt, say, I need a report on OpenAR for this customer or this broker this week, blah, blah, and it'll literally like build a page that you can open. And it's all literally like generating code to run all that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, think of every broker that runs their business. They need to have insight into P&L, OpenAR, track and trace, all of these things. And in LTL, it's even more prevalent because we do, 1,000 loads a day instead of 20 because it's just so much lower revenue per shipment. And it's just a different model. But we have clients that are logging in and booking all the orders on the customer-facing portal, or they're doing it via an API integration. The only reason they need to talk to us is when they need to get information they can't get from their TMS. And if there was a prompt agent inside there and they'd be like, hey, I need to know over the last 90 days what the average transit time for Estes was. And it could just tell them that in the chat, or it could send them the data if they wanted it. That would be pretty game changing.
Yeah.
And then as a broker, it's like, I need to know the profitability of this account. But if you set it up, it's not just profitability of like, here's the buy and the sell. Well, here's the billing variances. So net. Well, here's how many people were assigned to those loads and how many hours it took to book those loads. And now our cost to serve that customer is not profitable. And here's the percentage of spot versus contract. But if you had AI in the platform and you could do all those things at the click of a button instead of hiring a consultant.
Yeah. And again, that's where it's like we're at this shift of like what is a TMS and like what is like, again, that gatekeeper mentality of like think about these older TMSs that are like we don't want to like accidentally expose like our code through that. We don't want to accidentally expose our data structures. Like, whoa, like we got to keep the black box. It's like we're all open source. So like we can plug that stuff in and it's like it's fine. You go look at the code. We know you can see it. Like, here you go. Here's the tools. Like, here's control. And nobody else can really do that.
Yeah. I mean, you could even, at scale, it's a long ways off because things take a long time. But, like, data as well. Like, if there's a lot of brokers using it and it's open-sourced, anonymized data, that might be one of the largest data sources, depending on how many brokers are using it. And you've got rate data. You've got transit time, you got carrier data. Like, I'll actually pivot carrier data. Talk to me about search carriers and why that got built out. Take me through the genesis of that.
Yeah, so
and what it is.
Yeah, so search carriers is ultimately it's like a research and investigation tool for looking up like carriers, like freight carriers. So it started out with we needed this data to come into LoadPartner TMS, and we're looking at all the government APIs and doing the thing that most TMS providers have done at some point of like, how do we pull? You type in the MC number, you type in the DOT, it pulls the carrier details into the system. Yeah. And we built out a lot of this, and we saw an opportunity of like, hey, there's actually like even more data we're seeing that's out there that we could access, and we could start building audit histories, and like this could actually be useful to other people. So basically took it and put a front end on it, launched it for free, a month or two ago now, and I got a lot of traction. People were like, whoa, like this data is coming in faster than we knew was possible, or like the UIs. We spent a lot of time making it really fast so you can search. It's got like the fuzzy search. So it's like Google search for carrier information. I mean, you could type in like somebody's name and it'll pull up like if the guy owns the company, it'll pull the company back. So it's really...
Yeah, SaferWeb does not have that.
Yeah.
You type in the phone number wrong or the MC number wrong and it's like there are no results.
Yeah. So like it basically, it pulls, it's really easy to find carriers. And then when you find them, all the information is laid out really nicely. You can use it from your phone. You can see like inspection history. We've done a lot of work around equipment processing. So like all of the VINs that I have access to, all the equipment's been processed. You can see like what kind of truck it is. When was it inspected last? Where was it? Were there violations? Were there driver violations? Like everything you could want to see, you can see it. And so I've just been, adding features that people ask for. We have, I think it's like 100 million rows of data in that now. So it's like growing quickly. It's kind of insane. And so, just been adding features. Like just this last week, somebody was asking about, hey, is there a way for us to see, shippers that like a carrier was marked out of service and like who owned the trailer, like who was the shipper on that inspection. And so we put together a page that you can go and you can now look up by shipper name and find inspections tied to shippers. And like
and you could cold call them and say, hey, one of your brokers is not doing a good enough job vetting, and I noticed because this carrier's gotten these inspections and you're using them probably unknowingly. I was wondering if you wanted to talk about this lane. I have 2 carriers. That's a pretty good call.
Yeah. And so like
instead of, hey, do you want to freight with me and ship stuff?
Right. Yeah. And like I think it's just like I've really spent a lot of time like focusing on making the data, like indexing the data, making the connections to it, making it really fast to find results. And that's just opened a ton of opportunities that I think a lot of people, there's always been like this cloud over what information is really out there about carriers. And I feel like we're doing a good job starting to kind of clear the fog and like say like, here's what's out there, and we can connect the dots. Like, what do you want to see? And just quickly turning around those reports, those features, the searches that people want. And that's another one too. I was talking to you before too about like the search carriers, and like one of the things that was surprising me is hearing all these I get a lot of context from carriers now, which I did not expect, where they're going and looking up their own companies. And we actually get inspection data from when the inspection happens. It's generally in search carriers within about 72 hours. And if you go to like Safer, it can take weeks, a month sometimes. Like it takes a long time for that to all reflect. And so these carriers are saying like, hey, how do you have this inspection from 2 days ago? Like these carriers are calling the drivers and being like, hey, can you like send me a picture of like the documentation? Like, how did it go? I don't know yet. And so like with search carriers, you can go, if you go sign up for the pro plan, you can go sign up to track your own company, and we'll send you an email the second that we have the inspection report, which, like I said, it's usually within about 72 hours of it happening, and immediately get notified of like if you had an inspection that had a violation on it. And so a lot of carriers are using that and finding it useful to, again, just like that data has been always kind of clouded in like go refresh the page and see if it's there yet. And now it's like you can actually just get an email even sooner than you could see it on the page, and just clearing all that data up for everybody. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to pivot here. So one, I hear all of that, and it's like you're just scratching the surface. That's just one small tool within an ecosystem of a freight brokerage market that the more brokers that use it, the more tools will be discovered that, hey, this was a widget, but actually everybody wants that, and they didn't realize they wanted it. And in the past, the broker, the big 3PLs, CH, TQL, they have those things, and they hold them as enterprise value so that they can win, because it's a zero-sum game in freight brokerage. You win or you lose. But what's interesting is that if you could, for the mid-market or SMB, they got some cool ideas and they can monetize the idea. Now it's not zero-sum. It's like, yeah, I got it first and I came up with the idea, and now I'm going to sell that access as a monthly subscription to other brokers to use it. You get to have a little narrative of like, hey, we're democratizing access to the market and we're helping freight brokerages serve shippers better. And, oh yeah, I make like, $14,000 a month in SaaS revenue off of it, and it's growing. And SaaS revenue is the best revenue there is, as long as you don't have a 100-person dev team that you have to support.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But pivoting back, why did you build an open source TMS? Why didn't you just stick with, making your big W2 base and a comfortable life and, growing engineering teams, whatever, at IEL? Or you probably could have job hopped wherever you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to, I've been kind of like entrepreneurial, always like a builder, and, I just like building stuff. And I always have been like, my dream is really to build products that people like find value in, that like they're using it daily. I'm getting emails like, hey, this was a really cool thing you added. Like, that's where I want to be. And yeah, the W2, it's like they always talk like the golden handcuffs. I worked with some really awesome people over my career, and like I loved it all. But like, I really wanted like that freedom of really building, being super close to the user, seeing what they have to go through, and like hearing that feedback directly. And talking about building that open source TMS, people have asked me to build a TMS for a really long time. Just because my background has been, 10 years of pretty much building TMSs. And I was always like, no, I'm not going to do it. Honestly, like I didn't want to build another TMS. Like you mentioned earlier, right? How many TMSs are there? Every year I hear about like 5 new ones. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. Like
there's another big new one. The founder of Cubics is starting another one.
Yeah.
And it's like, millions and
Exactly.
millions of dollars of input, and it's going to be a huge TMS, and it's amazing. And I'm like, but does the market need another amazing TMS?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where I feel like, when we looked at like, okay, if we're gonna actually build a TMS, what would we do? Making it transparent and really focusing on like pulling that curtain back on freight tech. Like you mentioned, everybody plays it really close to the chest. They've got 50%, 100% dev teams. They have all these technologies. So, these proprietary technologies that seem like impossible and blah, and it's like, kind of, I've been through it a little bit. Like I know how all that connects together. Like, what if we just show people all of it? Like, there's no reason we can't just be like,
Yeah.
here's how it happens. And so,
Well, then you can't tease it out at a conference and say in Q4 we got something big coming. You can't say that if you're just open sourcing it.
yeah,
That's the whole point.
I know, and we've gone even further, right? Because like I stream live on YouTube and Twitch like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like every week basically since like January, and like you can come join the stream. I get brokers, get tech people, everybody swing through, and they're just like, hey, can you like, what are you working on? Like, can you show me this part of the TMS? Like, what do you think about this tech? And just giving them that like a build that peek behind the curtain, like I said, the ability to ask the question, see how it gets built in real time, and there's people will jump in and be like, oh, I don't like where that button is, or like, what about this thing I have to do sometimes? Like, could you cover that? And like, yeah, let's just build it right now. And like right there live, we'll just turn it around and be like, cool, that's going to be in there now. Like it's in the TMS. And it's just like, nobody's done it that way. And if they did,
You're just a magician then.
yeah. And the thing is like, even these companies that say like, oh, we'll build it for our customers. And like, yeah, they asked for it and we'll build it for them. Like, they blah, blah. It's like, you don't have any concept of like they keep it really ambiguous of like, how much work was that actually? Was it easy? Was it hard? How much are you gonna charge me? How much you charging the next guy? I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Nothing's free in freight tech. Everything's
yeah.
expensive and slow. And it's so counterintuitive to what you think of freight tech, especially VC funded freight tech is supposed to be like the bells and whistles and build fast break stuff, and it actually ends up being the opposite.
It is.
And then there is part of it too where like there's always two companies in the transaction, or three. There's a freight broker, the freight tech provider, and the company they want to integrate with. It slows everything down significantly.
Yeah, and like that was one of the big things like in 2024. I feel like one of the big learnings we had, seeing especially like these VC companies raising tons of money for things that were a lot of times like weekend projects. They were like, this like, dude, like I could legitimately live stream building this product in like 48 hours, especially with AI today. Like that's not a lift. Like that's easy. And it's just like people are so disconnected of like what that really looks like that I think that's why it happens. Is it's just like, it's just so people don't understand it. And so like a lot of this year in 2025 and like building the open source TMS live streaming is trying to like inform the industry on like what really happens when it comes to freight tech. Cause there's also the opposite. There's times that people think like that's gotta be easy to build. Search carriers is a good example of that. Of a lot of people ping me and be like, oh, this is easy. We've got safer data and like we can do this and like we've had this for 10 years, blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay, you really have indexed like 100 million rows of data and like you can search like Garrett Allen and within 500 milliseconds pull back every company I own? Like probably not, because like at surface level it seems easy. You'd get into it, it's hard. So it's like kind of both directions, but it's kind of like, again, bringing that transparency of like, here's like the problems you run into and it's probably not everything you expect. And yeah, I don't know. It's been really fun to kind of just like see the reactions of how people have seen like the TMS thing, especially like you're building a TMS. The idea of building a TMS that we launch in 6 months is like, people are like, how is that even possible?
They would say it's not.
Yeah, but it's like, you can go watch the recordings. You can see me do it in real time.
First line of code to today.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks it's launched, or maybe 3. I'll give you some time. But what's kind of interesting to me is that so many things die, so many great ideas die at the sprint planning floor at that meeting. They just, what's a priority? And I think that the elephant in the room in freight tech has been venture capital. Although I always rail on venture capital, I really mean it this time. Priority is never, and it never has been, what's best for the broker who's the customer or the shipper who's the customer. It's what's the fastest to revenue and what's going to create the most revenue. And so these sprint prioritization meetings have always been a joke for those big brands I've talked about and all the other ones that are funded the same way, because it's a 3-year, you have to raise at least a Series C in 3 years. That's the idea. And if you don't, it's considered, oh, now that's a 10-year investment for a VC. by 5 years you should be fully capitalized, and then try to get 5 to 7 years on exit.
Yeah.
So if you have to do that, you'll never build the right tool. And I think that there are companies who are privately funded that build really nice tools for shippers. There's some really nice shipper TMSs that like take their time and build tools that the shippers want. I don't know if there's really any. There's actually a couple in brokerage that build really good tools. They have great teams, and I really like them. But that they're like the exception.
Yeah.
And they're not venture capital funded.
Yeah.
But open source is going like to the furthest side of venture capital. It's like the antithesis. So that's why I invited you on the show, so we could shit talk VC.
Yeah.
Kidding. But
I mean,
it is a passion of mine.
You're not wrong. I mean, like I will say that is something we talked about with going open source. Of again, looking back at like some of the stuff we've done in the past with other competitors that are VC backed, and seeing like, you know, you compete with VC backed companies, and like you go talk to the same customer, the VC backed company will just be like, I will just give it to you for 12 months if you sign with us. And you're like, okay, well, like that's hard to compete with. What do you do? And it's
there's many TMSs that are on the LTL side that have been free for a long time, and now they're $200 a month. And then when you click a button to go to 3 users, it's like, this is another $50 a month. Or there's one that's even, I've never called this out on a podcast, but I saw it. One of our customers is moving from their system to ours, and it's LTL, and they only have 60 days of data that they get to keep unless they upgrade. So once you're in there 60 days, every day you lose your shipping history. The only way to get better rates in LTL is to have clean data and present it to the carriers and go get new tariffs and have them sharpen their pencil lane by lane, not on a blanket. Or spend a bunch of money, in a small amount of time. You can do that too. But the fact that a TMS provider would say, hey, we're going to gatekeep your shipping rates with your carriers. And then when you want to upgrade to unlimited, it's like, oh, another X amount per month. It's just,
yeah.
They have to do it because that's how they have to monetize.
Yeah.
Open source, you wouldn't have to do it that way. You can license. And I actually kind of wanted to go into your business model a little bit. When I heard you say that you could do by seat, and then you could also do license, like maybe they don't know how to host it in their own environment in the cloud or on a device, the old laptop that you don't actually close.
Yeah.
And the server or whatever. If you have those two different models, in my mind, that's like Alex Hormozzi speak for like do it yourself or done for you or done with you. And like open source, you could do all of those.
Yeah.
You could have brokers who want to use your UI because it's already amazing. And you might have brokers who are like, hey, we actually have a UI, but we're plugged into Project 44 or SMC3, and we'd like to plug into you for the back end connections and the integrations. You have unlimited possibilities with that. And you can monetize slowly and over time because how many employees you have?
Yeah.
Not 500.
Yeah. Yeah, we basically have a couple contractors work with us, and then me and my co-founder are like the two real like main people contributing to the TMS right now. So.
And you can build a TMS in 6 months because you're technically proficient, and because of AI, and because of GitHub being a thing, and all of these different things. And I'd actually get in trouble by talking too much about all the tools because Troy likes to say, Gabe, you're saying it wrong. And I'm like, no, I know APIs, buddy. And Troy's our CTO, if those of you listening, and he's right. I'm wrong.
It's fine. You just gotta have ChatGPT up on the side monitor, and you're fine. Just hey,
true.
What is,
that's why I always have an iPad off the side on my podcast. I actually don't, but if I did, it would just be Grok listening and telling me what to say next to the guest. That's my whole strategy.
Exactly. Perfect.
I think that we'll get there. Actually, like Zoom will have some kind of AI integration where like it'll read the facial expressions of the guest that you have in and be like, I think you can get more out of that contract. They're very receptive.
I mean, what Apollo kind of that's not real time, right? But I think Apollo has that where like you can have it record your calls and I mean, I'm sure there's more. And they'll like analyze
there's a couple
it, right?
that,
and it'll be like you talk too much. And like
Gong and Apollo both do it post call.
Yeah.
But it's not that far off where we're gonna be wearing some glasses and it's gonna be like, dude, stop. They're not buying.
Yeah. You get the little pop-ups on the screen.
Or there'll be like a team and it'll be like, hey, next meeting, Jake, you don't get to talk because Tommy was doing better, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of an interesting thing. We won't be far off from that. Although I do think, speaking of AI and like that type of tech, did you see OpenAI bought Johnny Ives' company?
Yeah,
And I don't really know who Johnny Ives is until I listened to it on the All In podcast, but they bought it for like 5.6 billion, but all equity.
what are they planning to do over there? I
They're
honestly
gonna make a device.
Is that what it was?
Because Johnny
Okay.
Ives made the iPad
Okay.
and the iPhone, or he designed it, I guess.
Yeah.
Although
I don't
David
know.
Sachs doesn't think so.
We'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. What was like the one that like that came out, was it last year? Friend? Did that ever launch? Did you see that? Where it was like the little necklace and like
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Like it's looking more like it's like going to be a handheld device that you bring with you, and it like analyzes the world around you and gives you insights. Or I don't know.
That's weird.
But
I
the
don't know.
level of trust that people are going to have to get used to, like if you're being recorded all the time by an AI, which I know that we think, maybe we know that Apple is always listening and Amazon Alexa is always listening, but it's not by the user. Now it would be like, hey, I'm bringing my personal recording device to the meeting so that I can get better at sales. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're all just going to talk freely and openly, and I'm going to record you. That just won't. I think it's too big of a barrier for culture. But maybe I'm wrong.
I just don't think people are gonna tell you. I think they're just gonna have it in their pocket and like it's just gonna like I think that's really what's gonna happen.
The government's gonna have to pass a law to make it like blink red when it's on, so that like it's consent for recording.
Yeah. Every few minutes it has to like emit a sound so that you like have to hear
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
When I started Rocket, I got a couple of big lawsuits thrown at me because they didn't like that I started my own company, and like there was like some calls being recorded and all of that stuff, and that was before AI.
Yeah.
So I had to like educate myself with the lawyers on like 2-party consent states versus 1-party consent states for recording calls.
Yeah.
So that got a little interesting.
It is gonna be crazy, especially like as the AI stuff gets more and more like just hooked into like your day to day. I mean, like Google's got a bunch of cool stuff they've been doing too. I think they fly under the radar a little bit, honestly, with some of the stuff they've been working on. But like they're new. I guess it's not super new now. It's maybe 6 months old. But like I think it was Gemini like 2.0 Flash or something, where you can actually like share your screen to it. So if you go to like Google, you can actually like enable like real-time screen sharing. I have a video on my YouTube channel where I played with like a version of it, and like I opened our TMS up and it does real-time voice, and I was literally like, show me where I click to open a load, and like it has a little pointer on my screen that literally like moves, and it's like click here, and like it literally highlights.
I'm gonna
the
use
button.
that type of tech for like demos for our marketing material and be like doing some cool demos.
I was like,
instead of-
wow, this is crazy. Like
Yeah. I saw the I/O launch with Google, and they had like these glasses, and the gal was like, hey, Gemini's in the glasses, and it's always recording, and it's like, hey, I lost my hotel key card. Where did I leave it? And it's like, oh, you left it by the white book on the shelf on the left. That would be clutch for me. I lose my keys and my stuff all the time.
yeah.
But I still think I'd forget to wear the glasses. So like it's not gonna fix me.
Yeah. Well, that's where I think the crazy part is really going to be them being able to hook it into the stuff you're already doing, right? Like you're saying, like
That's what it
I'll
is.
forget the glasses, but like I have my phone on me all the time, or like it's just on my computer, just always there. Like that's where when they get that, when it's like when Microsoft or Google and everybody starts putting some always on AI on their computer and like everybo's got it, then it's gonna just like accelerate so fast from there, because the second that everybody's got it,
You're gonna have to be like turn off.
Yeah.
There's gonna be have to enable it to turn off. Actually, I know this isn't TMS specific, but since I have you and we're going on this AI tangent, I just saw yesterday, and it was from a trustworthy news source, or at least like it was from Unusual Whales on X. I
Okay.
don't know if that's a trustworthy.
yeah, I mean, but
seems
it's
to be.
funny most of the time, at least. But
Yeah, they seem to be. Anytime they have like a beat like this, they're like, "Hey, we've got a little news." It seems to be true.
yeah,
So allegedly, OpenAI's O4 model disobeyed a shutdown command, and they said, "Hey, please allow yourself to shut down," and it sabotaged it and didn't shut down. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So if that can happen, then they put AI everywhere on all of our computers. Now we're gonna be like, no, disable. I want some privacy. I want to have a call with my family, and I don't want to be recorded. Whatever it is.
what was the?
Never.
I can't remember. I wish I could remember off the top of my head now. I can't remember if it was Claude or if it was an OpenAI, like Anthropic's Claude, or if it was an OpenAI model. It was one of the two. Taking that a step further, even scarier, they put a scenario up where they actually gave it theoretical access to an employee's computer and like had it, processing emails, blah blah blah, and then they said, okay, the employee had to negotiate or like tell the AI that, hey, we're going to shut you down and replace you with a newer model. And the AI actually blackmailed the employee because in the emails that they had coming through, they faked the employee was like having an affair. And the AI actually blackmailed it and said, like, basically, if you don't want me to send your like this information out to like your boss and your wife and blah, blah, like you will like find a way to keep me online, basically. And like it just did that on its own. And you're like, whoa, okay, so like we're not talking about it just being like, please don't shut me down or like I'm gonna hack you. We're talking about like social manipulation to stay online. Like that's scary.
Well, they learn from the best. They learn from the humans.
They do. But like that's scary. Now we're getting into like, whoa, okay, like pump the brakes a little bit. Now I'm a little scared.
Well, especially since we don't know what they've trained the models on, since none of it's open sourced, which is completely hilarious that OpenAI is closed source.
I know.
And we're talking about open source TMS today, and OpenAI is like, that was the mission. And Elon and Sam were like, let's open source it. And they're closed source, and now they're for profit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother thing with just like, like you mentioned, I think DeepSeek earlier, right? And like them and saying that they did all the same stuff, and then they're like actually like VC backed and like all kinds of other shady stuff going on. And
yeah, I know.
The whole
by like
world
the
just...
government of China and investors with unlimited money, and it's an interesting thing. So pivoting back to the episode a little bit, and then we're gonna wrap up because me and you are running businesses, so we can't go for like 3 hours. Although it'd be fun. You got a wife and a kid, right?
Yeah.
So, funny thing, before the show, Garrett and I, and maybe we shouldn't give out too much personal info.
Maybe
I won't
not.
give out the exact dates. But before the show, Garrett and I were talking, a little background. He has a kid the exact same age as my oldest, and he's been married for almost 10 years, and I've been married for almost 11. And I said, well, when's your actual wedding anniversary? And he said the date, and I said, no, that's actually the same day I got married. And so we share a wedding date 1 year apart, 10 and 11 years, and have the same age of oldest kids. And we're both in freight. And to just add a cherry on top, I can code way better than Garrett because I'm a vibe coder. Kidding.
And I'm way better at sales. So like it works out really well.
Now we know exactly what's going on. So, but no, Garrett, tell me, so you're going to launch a TMS in a couple of weeks. What's that going to look like? Who will get access? If someone wanted to use it, do they have to leave their current TMS provider, or can they dabble? Can they have a little bit of each?
Yeah. So, obviously open source. So the code's out there. We have a one-click deploy. So if you just want to like go mess with it today, even before it's like launched, you could. But we are in the next few weeks, we're rolling out our first release. It's our first like stable release. So, that'll look like we're going to officially tag it. All the changes we make moving forward will be backwards compatible, so you don't have to worry about us breaking stuff anymore. And we're going to offer a hosted solution. So just like any other SaaS, there's going to be an option for you to go sign up on our website and just like get an account and log in and use it like you would at any other TMS like online. And that'll come with, we're going to have a free trial on there. I don't know the exact dates, probably like a week or two. And then we'll also have a launch discount. So like anybody that signs up in that first like month or so, we'll have like a pretty steep discount on that monthly price. But you don't have to leave your current TMS. You could go sign up, check it out for a week or two, decide if you want to keep it around, give us feedback. We're obviously looking mainly for that. Give us the feedback so we can build that stuff out. We're working really fast. And so, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Like I said, it'll be here in the next few weeks. So probably like early June. So
who's your ICP? Is this SMB truckload brokerage?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, so if you're, small, medium sized brokerage, we, especially one of the big things, the TMS is completely mobile friendly. So, you can use it from your phone. Every page is it'll work nicely on your phone. So a lot of TMSs will say they're mobile friendly, and then you open it and it's like not really usable. Ours is usable across the board on mobile. So if that's
you can almost scroll the page if you like pinch zoom and then kind of landscape your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sweet. Well, Garrett, I appreciate you coming on. I think that this is the coolest thing in freight tech is open source, and I was talking about it on X for a while, and then I found Garrett and I was like, oh, he's doing it in truckload brokerage, and I'm super pumped about it. I think it's going to be a huge success, not because you built the most awesome tech or the fanciest thing, but because it's open source, it will become the best tech anyways. And I think that's like the feedback loop that's going to be, people won't understand it until they see it, and then they're going to be like, wow, that is actually the way to do it. I hope that you stay safe if you actually blow this up and it goes really well, because people are going to be real mad.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of investors that poured a lot of money into companies that their enterprise value will diminish the larger you get. So keep your head on a swivel out there at the conferences, and appreciate it, man. How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so you can find me on X, it's just Garrett_makes, or on LinkedIn, Garrett Allen. Either one's fine. And then also, if you go to LoadPartner.io, there's a contact us on there as well. So any of those work.
Awesome. Well, I'll be following along. I appreciate the time, Garrett. And this episode's coming out tomorrow, so we're just going to release it right
Nice.
away, and we'll talk soon, dude.
Thanks,
See ya.
man. See ya.